गुरुदेव की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्मर शिल भक्तिवेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्मर शिल भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी महाराज शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शतश्मर शिल भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु महाभागवत शिल गोक्षरस बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु शिल सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नितिल विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम शिल जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपनु गौरिया गुरु वार्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम अचय शिल हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदत्त गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मोन देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। Shinitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Oh, and today's disappearance day. Shri Jayadev Goswami Par ki Jai. Tadir Shubha Tirabhav Titi ki Jai. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Radhikaya Priyatmane Shri Śrīmad Bhakti Vedanta Narayaniti Namine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo mahavadanyaya Krishna prema pradayate Krishnaya Krishna chaitanya namne gauratishe namaha. Guruve Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tarbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Yam Pravrajantam Anupetam Apeta Krityam Dvaipayano Viraha Katara Ajuhavo Putreti Tanmayataya Taravo Bhinedu Stang Sarva Bhuta Hridayam Munimanatosmi Narayanam Namaskrityam Narang Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudhirayet. Shrinvatang Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridantasto Hyabadrani Vidhunoti Suhrit Satam. Nashta Prayeshvabhadreshu Nityang Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatyuttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Tavai vasmi na jivami tvaya vina iti vigyaya radhe tvang nayamang charanantikam. Bhaktya vihina aparada lakshay kshiptashtakama ditaranga madhe kripa mai tvam sharanam prapanna vrinde namaste charanaravindam. Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Dandavat Pranams Madhavi Didi and Rasishri Mataji, Haribo, Gargaraji, Ganga Didi, and Rup Manjari Didi. Yes, Jai Shila Jai Dev Goswami ki Jai. Rup Manjari very kindly reminds me what the special days are every day. It's very helpful because I always forget. Or sometimes I just don't even never look, and so she keeps me informed. All right, so yesterday we finished reading Gajendra's prayers of surrender. In his prayers, he was glorifying the supremely powerful Lord, the supremely inconceivable Lord, all the supreme appearances of the Lord, worshiping the Lord, and how the Lord is the supreme source of everything, and how the Lord is the supreme master. So, and then we read how Lord Hari saved Gajendra from the crocodile. So let's just read from that point. Unmotivated worship. All right. I'll just read the last few verses actually. Okay. So at the end he glorified the Lord as the supreme master. I do not wish to live any more after being released from my body, when I'm released from the crocodile. What is the use of an elephant's body covered externally and internally by ignorance? I desire liberation from the covering of ignorance, which is not destroyed by influence of time. Gajendra says, I do not know how to perform bhakti because I am an animal and am in great danger now. So I just offer respects with my mind to whatever I see in this universe. My respects to the creator of the universe itself, yet transcendental to the universe, the knower of everything in the universe, the supersoul of the universe, and the unborn Brahman. My obeisances unto that supreme shelter. Having their karma burnt up by bhakti yoga within their hearts, purified by bhakti, great yogis see the supreme Lord. My respects unto that master of all mystic yoga. My respects to you, the controller of the three formidable forces, attachment, greed, and lust, the reservoir of all sense pleasure, protector of the surrendered souls, and the possessor of inconceivable power and mercy. You are unapproachable by those who are unable to control their senses. People in general do not know their real identities due to their ignorance being covered by the Lord's illusory energy, false ego, and the bodily concept. His glories are difficult to understand. I take shelter of that supreme Lord. There's a note here. The relation between the Lord and the jiva is like that of father and child. But due to the influence of material contact, the jiva forgets his real identity and wants to enjoy the material world independently. Maya is very difficult to surmount, but easy for one who surrenders unto the Supreme Lord like Gajendra. Lord Hari saves Gajendra. Gajendra thus described the supreme authority beyond material conception, but without naming a specific person, as he did not know who it was. The demigods like Brahma and Indra, because of their false identity, with their characteristics like swan carrier and Airavat carrier, didn't come to rescue him. But Lord Hari, being the personification of all demigods and the supersoul of all beings, approached him. Note: the demigods who are the Lord's expansions thought, Gajendra is asking help of the Supreme who is above all of us. He didn't praise us at all, but rather belittled us, calling us minor expansions. In verse 22. So let the Supreme Lord, whom he praised, come for him. But the Lord doesn't appear immediately, so the elephant will die. Thus the demigods showed indifference to Gajendra out of false identity. Understanding Gajendra's suffering and hearing his prayers, Lord Hari, the shelter of the universe who lives everywhere, immediately appeared there with great speed on the back of Garuda, carrying his disc and other weapons as the demigods praised him. Then note, since the demigods considered Gajendra's prayer to be directed toward the Supreme Lord, they felt offended, and this in itself was offensive. Consequently, when the Lord went there, they also went and offered prayers to the Lord so that their offense might be excused. Though reeling in acute pain due to the attack of the crocodile, upon seeing Lord Hari, Gajendra picked up a lotus with its trunk and offered it to the Lord, praying, O Narayan, Guru of the universe, please accept my obeisances. Note: a devotee sees a danger to be the Lord's mercy because it gives him or her a good opportunity to think of the Lord sincerely and offer prayers with undiverted attention. A devotee considers dangers to be due to one's past misdeeds and doesn't accuse the Lord. For one who is in such consciousness, salvation is guaranteed. Lord Hari beheads the crocodile. Lord Hari quickly descended from Garuda, who was moving slow, and by his mercy pulled Gajendra along with the crocodile out of the water. Then, while the demigods stood and watched, the Lord ignored them, he severed the crocodile's head with his disc. Now Gajendra returns to the spiritual world. Chapter 4. This fourth chapter describes the previous birth of Gajendra and the crocodile. It tells how the crocodile became a Gandharva, and how Gajendra became an associate of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There was a king on the Gandharva planet whose name was Huhu. Once this king Huhu was enjoying with women in the water, and while enjoying, he pulled the leg of Devalarishi, who was then taking bath in the water. Upon this, the sage became very angry and immediately cursed him to become a crocodile. King Huhu was very sorry when cursed in that way, and he begged pardon from the sage, who, in compassion, gave him the benediction that he would be freed when Gajendra was delivered by the personality of Godhead. Thus the crocodile was delivered when killed by Narayan. When Gajendra, by the mercy of the Lord, became one of the Lord's associates in Vaikuntha, he got 4 hands. This achievement is called Sarupya Mukti, or the attachment of receiving a spiritual body exactly like that of Narayan. Gajendra, in his previous birth, had been a great devotee of Lord Vishnu. His name was Indradumna, and he was the king of the Tamila country. Following the Vedic principles, the king retired from family life and constructed a small cottage in the Malayachala hills, where he always worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead in silence. Agastya Rishi, along with many disciples, once approached King Indradumna's ashram, but because the king was meditating on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could not receive Agastya Rishi properly. Thus the Rishi became very angry and cursed the king to become a dull elephant. In accordance with this curse, the king was born as an elephant, and he forgot all about his previous activities in devotional service. Nonetheless, in his birth as an elephant, when he was dangerously attacked by the crocodile, he remembered his past life in devotional service and remembered a prayer he had learned in that life. Because of this prayer, he again received the mercy of the Lord. Thus he was immediately delivered, and he became one of the Lord's 4-handed associates. Shukadeva Goswami ends this chapter by describing the good fortune of the elephant. Shukadeva Goswami says that by hearing the narration of Gajendra's deliverance, one can also get the opportunity to be delivered. Shukadeva Goswami vividly describes this, and thus the chapter ends. Just got a message, just want to see if it's... Oh, a photo from Manjari. That's a sweet photo. Okay. Oh, and Dandavat Pranams, Indira Mataji, and Yashji, and Prajumna Prabhu. Okay, yeah. Yeah, because today's a short reading, so maybe let's read Mangala Geetam. Let's see what time it is at the end. Shri Shuka Uvacha Tada Devarshi Gandharva Brahmeshana Purogamaha Mumuchu Kusumasaram Sangsanta Karmata Dhare. Shri Shukadev Goswami said, when the Lord delivered Gajendra, king of the elephants, all the demigods, sages, and Gandharvas, headed by Brahma and Shiva, praised this activity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and showered flowers upon both the Lord and Gajendra. Purport. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is evident from this chapter that great sages like Devala Rishi, Narad Muni, and Agastya Muni will sometimes curse someone. The curse of such a personality, however, is in fact a benediction. Both the crocodile, who had been a Gandharva in his previous life, and Gajendra, who had been a king named Indradumna, were cursed, but both of them benefited. Indradumna, in his birth as an elephant, attained salvation and became a personal associate to the Lord in Vaikuntha, regained his status as a Gandharva. We find evidence in many places that the curse of a great saint or devotee is not a curse, but a benediction. Nedur dundu bhayo devya Gandharva nanritur jagu Rishayas charana siddhas tushtuvo purushottamam. There was a beating of kettle drums in the heavenly planets. The inhabitants of Gandharva Loka began to dance and sing, while great sages and the inhabitants of Charana Loka and Siddha Loka offered prayers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Purushottama. Yoso graha savai sadhyaha paramashcharya rupadrik mukto devala shapena huhur gandharva sattama pranamya shirasadhisham uttama shlokamavyayam agayata yashodhama kirtanya gunasatkatam. The best of the Gandharvas, King Huhu, having been cursed by Devala Muni, had become a crocodile. Now, having been delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he assumed a very beautiful form as a Gandharva. Understanding by whose mercy this had happened, he immediately offered his respectful obeisances with his head and began chanting prayers just suitable for the Transcendental Lord, the Supreme Eternal, who is worshipped by the choicest verses. Wait a second. Was it just his head that was offering prayers? Oh, wait, no, sorry. God, I'm so dull. Yeah, he just assumed a very beautiful form as a Gandharva. Sorry, guys. I thought of something else while I was reading that. So, okay. Purport. Something a little disturbing happened just before this reading, and so my mind's a little bit distracted. Purport. Don't worry, it's nothing to do with Umadidi. Umadidi was fine. Yeah, anyways. Okay. Purport. The story of how the Gandharva had become a crocodile will be described later. The curse by which the Gandharva took this position was actually a blessing, not a curse. One should not be displeased when a saintly person curses someone, for his curse, indirectly, is a blessing. The Gandharva had the mentality of an inhabitant of the celestial planetary system, and for him to become an associate of the Supreme Lord would have taken millions of long years. However, because he was cursed by Devala Rishi, he became a crocodile, and in only one life was fortunate enough to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face and be promoted to the spiritual world to become one of the Lord's associates. Similarly, Gajendra was also delivered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he was freed from the curse of Agastya Muni. But I think Srila Prabhupada said before that Gajendra was delivered, he's delivered from the material world, but he didn't become one of the Lord's associates. He was just, delivered into Brahman, but not. Sonukampita ishena parikramya pranamyatam lokasya pashato lokam sam agan mukta kilbisha. Having been favored by the causeless mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and having regained his original form, King Huhu circumambulated the Lord and offered his obeisances. Then, in the presence of all the demigods headed by Brahma, he returned to Gandharva Loka. He had been freed from all sinful reactions. Gajendra Bhagavat Sparshad Vimukto Jnana Bandhanat Prapto Bhagavato Rupam Pitavashas Chaturbujaha. Because Gajendra, king of the elephants, had been touched directly by the hands of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was immediately freed from all material ignorance and bondage. Thus, he received the salvation of Sarupya Mukti, in which he achieved the same bodily features as the Lord, being dressed in yellow garments and possessing 4 hands. Purport. If one is favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead by having his gross body touched by the Lord, his body turns into a spiritual body, and he can go back home, back to Godhead. Gajendra assumed a spiritual body when his body was touched by the Lord. Similarly, Dhruva Maharaj assumed his spiritual body in this way. Archana Padati, daily worship of the deity, provides an opportunity to touch the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus it enables one to be fortunate enough to get a spiritual body and go back to Godhead. Not only by touching the body of the Supreme Lord, but simply by hearing about his pastimes, chanting his glories, touching his feet, and offering worship. In other words, by serving the Lord somehow or other, one is purified of material contamination. This is the result of touching the Supreme Lord. One who is a pure devotee, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, for some reason it says one who is a pure devotee, Anyabhilashita Shunyam, who acts according to the Shastra and the words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, certainly becomes purified. Like Gajendra, he assumes a spiritual body and returns home back to Godhead. Text 7. Savai Purvam Abhudraja Pandyo Dravidasattamaha Indradumna iti kyato Vishnuvrata Parayana. This Gajendra had formerly been a Vaishnav and the king of the country known as Pandya, which is the province of Dravida, South India. In his previous life, he was known as Indradumna Maharaj. Sa ekadara dhanakala atmavan grihitamona vrata ishwaram harim jatadharastapasa aplutochutam samarchayan asakalachalachramaha. Indradumna Maharaj retired from family life and went to the Malaya hills, where he had a small cottage for his ashram. He wore matted locks on his head and always engaged in austerities. Once, while observing a vow of silence, he was fully engaged in the worship of the Lord and absorbed in the ecstasy of love of Godhead. Yadrichaya tatra mahayashamuni samagamachishya ganai parishrita tam vikshavitushnim akritarhanadhikam rahasyupasinam rishishchachukopaha. While Indradumna Maharaj was engaged in ecstatic meditation, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sage Agastya Muni arrived there, surrounded by his disciples. When the Muni saw that Maharaj Indradumna, who was sitting on a secluded place, remained silent and did not follow the etiquette of offering him a reception, he was very angry. Tasma imam shapam adad asadur ayang duratma krita buddhiradya vipravamanta vishatang tamisrang yata gajastabda mati saeva. Agastya Muni then spoke this curse against the king. This king Indradumna is not at all gentle. Being low and uneducated, he has insulted a Brahman. May he therefore enter the region of darkness and receive the dull, dumb body of an elephant. Purport. An elephant is very strong. It has a very big body, and it can work very hard and eat a large quantity of food. But its intelligence is not at all commensurate with its size and strength. Thus, in spite of so much bodily strength, the elephant works as a menial servant for a human being. Really? Oh, yeah. Yeah, of course. I was thinking of a crocodile. Whatever. Sorry. Agastya Muni thought Sorry, guys, I need to stop doing that. Agastya Muni thought it wise to curse the king to become an elephant, because the powerful king did not receive Agastya Muni as one is obliged to receive a Brahman. Yet, although Agastya Muni cursed Maharaj Indradumna to become an elephant, the curse was indirectly a benediction, for by undergoing one life as an elephant, Indradumna Maharaj ended the reactions for all the sins of his previous life. Immediately after the expiry of the elephant's life, he was promoted to Vaikuntha Loka to become a personal associate to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan in a body exactly like that of the Lord. This is called Sarupya Mukti. Just a fun thing that I learned in my Sanskrit class is when I see this word tasmai, when the I is followed by any vowel, it becomes I, like long A Y. But that Y is optionally can be omitted, and it can just be long A. So that's why it's tasma here. Tasma imam. But the word is tasmai, but it becomes tasmai, like a long AY, or you can delete the Y and make it tasma imam. Yeah, after these Sanskrit classes, it's really fun to understand all the different sandhis, why they are there. Shri Shuka Uvacha Evang Shaptava Kato Gastyo Bhagavan Ripasanugaha Indradumno pirajarshir dishtam tar upadharayan apanna konjarim yonim atmasmriti vinashinim haryarchananubhavena yargajatve pyanusmritihi. Shukadev Goswami continued, My dear king, after Agastya Muni had thus cursed King Indradumna, the Muni left that place along with his disciples. Since the king was a devotee, he accepted Agastya Muni's curse as welcome, because it was the desire of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, although in his next life he got the body of an elephant, because of devotional service, he remembered how to worship and offer prayers to the Lord. Purport. This is a unique position of a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although the king was cursed, he welcomed the curse because a devotee is always aware that nothing can happen without the desire of the Supreme Lord. Although the king was not at fault, Agastya Muni cursed him, and when this happened, the king considered it to be due to his past misdeeds. Tatenu kampam susamikshamano. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10:14-8. This is a practical example of how a devotee thinks. He regards any reverses in his life as a blessing of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, instead of being agitated by such reverses, he continues his activities by devotional service, and Krishna takes care of him and enables him to be promoted to the spiritual world, back to Godhead. If a devotee has to suffer the reactions of his past misdeeds, the Supreme Lord arranges for him to be given only a token of these reactions, and very soon he is freed from all the reactions of material contamination. One should therefore adhere to devotional service, and the Lord himself will very soon see to one's promotion to the spiritual world. A devotee should not be disturbed by unfortunate circumstances, but must continue his regular program depending on the Lord for everything. The word upadharayan, considering, is very significant in this verse. This word indicates that a devotee knows what is what. He understands what is happening in material conditional life. Evam vimoksha gajayutta pamabjagnabhas tenapi parshadagating gamitena yukta kandarva siddha vibudar upagiyamana karmadbhutam sabhavanam garudashano gat. Upon delivering the king of the elephants from the clutches of the crocodile, and from material existence, which resembles a crocodile, the Lord awarded him the status of Sarupya Mukti. In the presence of the Gandharvas, the Siddhas, and other demigods who were praising the Lord for his wonderful transcendental activities, the Lord, sitting on the back of his carrier, Garuda, returned to his all-wonderful abode and took Gajendra with him. Purport. In this verse, the word vimoksha is significant. For a devotee, moksha or mukti, salvation, means getting the position of the Lord's associate. The impersonalists are satisfied to get the liberation of merging in the Brahman effulgence. But for a devotee, mukti, liberation, means not to merge in the effulgence of the Lord, but to be directly promoted to the Vaikuntha planets and to become an associate of the Lord. In this regard, there is a relevant verse in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10:14-8. Tateno kampam susamikshamano punjana evatma kritam vipakam hridvag vapurbhir vididhan namaste jiveta yo mukti pade sadai bhak. One who sees your compassion and thus tolerates all kinds of adverse conditions due to the karma of his past deeds, who engages always in your devotional service with his mind, words, and body, and who always offers obeisances unto you, is certainly a bona fide candidate for liberation. A devotee who tolerates everything in this material world and patiently executes his devotional service can become Mukti Pade Sadai Bhak, a bona fide candidate for liberation. The word Dai Bhak refers to a hereditary right to the Lord's mercy. A devotee must simply engage in devotional service, not caring about material situations. Then he automatically becomes a rightful candidate for promotion to Vaikuntha Loka. The devotee who renders unalloyed service to the Lord gets the right to be promoted to Vaikuntha Loka, just as a son inherits the property of his father. When a devotee gets liberation, he becomes free from material contamination and engages as a servant of the Lord. This is explained in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 2.10.6. Muktir hitvanyata rupam sarupena vivastitihi. The word sarupa refers to sarupya mukti, going back home, back to Godhead, and remaining the Lord's eternal associate, having ordained a spiritual body exactly that resembling. Sorry. I spaced out for a second. The word sarup refers to sarupya mukti, going back home, back to Godhead, and remaining in the Lord's eternal associate, having regained a spiritual body exactly resembling that of the Lord, with 4 hands, holding the Shankha, Chakra, Gada, and Padma. The difference between the mukti of the impersonalist and that of the devotee is that the devotee is immediately appointed an eternal associate to the Lord, whereas the impersonalist, although merging in the effulgence of the Brahmajyoti, is still insecure and therefore generally falls again to this material world. Aruhya kritrena param padam tata patantado na drita yushmar angraya. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10.2.32. Although the impersonalist rises to the Brahman effulgence and enters into that effulgence, he has no engagement in the service of the Lord, and therefore he is again attracted to materialistic philanthropic activities. Thus, he comes down to open hospitals and educational institutions, feed poor men, and perform similar materialistic activities, which the impersonalists think are more precious than serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Anadrita yushmar angraya. The impersonalists do not think that the service of the Lord is more valuable than serving the poor man or starting a school or hospital. Although they say Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Brahman is real and the material world is false, they are nonetheless very eager to serve the false material world and neglect the service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Etan Maharaja Teverito Maya Krishnanubhavo Gajaraja Mokshanam Svargyam Yashasyam Kalikalmashapaham Duswapnanasham Kuruvarya Shrinvatam. Once again, okay. My dear King Parikshit, I have now described the wonderful power of Krishna as displayed when the Lord delivered the king of the elephants. O best of the Kuru dynasty, those who hear this narration become fit to be promoted to the higher planetary systems. Simply because of hearing this narration, they gain a reputation as devotees. They are unaffected by the contamination of Kali Yuga, and they never see bad dreams. Wow, they never see bad dreams. So I guess if you're having bad dreams, it's good to read this narration. I had a weird dream last night. Anyways. Yatanu kirtayante chat etach shreyas kama dijatayaha shuchaya pratarutaya duswapna dupasanshantaye. Therefore, after getting up from bed in the morning, those who desire their own welfare, especially the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and in particular the Brahman Vaishnavas, should chant this narration as it is, without deviation, to counteract the troubles of bad dreams. Okay. This is good to purport. Every Vedic literature, especially in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad Gita, is a Vedic mantra. Here the word yatanu kirtayanti are used. They are used to recommend that this literature be presented as it is. Unscrupulous persons, however, deviate from the actual narration and interpret the text in their own way with grammatical jugglery. Such deviations are to be avoided. This is a Vedic injunction supported by Shukadeva Goswami, one of the Mahajans, or authorities. He says, Yatanu kirtayanti. One should recite the mantra as it is without deviation, for then one will be eligible to rise to the platform of all good fortune. Shukadeva Goswami especially recommends that those who are Brahmins, Shruchaya, recite all these mantras after rising from bed in the morning. Because of sinful activities, at night we have bad dreams, which are very troublesome. Indeed, Maharaj Yudhishthira was obliged to see hell because of a slight deviation from devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, duswapna, bad dreams, occur because of sinful activities. A devotee sometimes accepts a sinful person as his disciple, and to counteract the sinful reactions he accepts from the disciple, he has to see a bad dream. Nonetheless, the spiritual master is so kind that in spite of having bad dreams due to the sinful disciple, he accepts this troublesome business for the deliverance of the victims of Kali Yuga. After initiation, therefore, a disciple should be extremely careful not to commit any sinful act that might cause difficulties for himself and the spiritual master. Before the deity, before the fire, before the spiritual master, and before the Vaishnavas, the honest disciple promises to refrain from all sinful activity. Therefore, he must not again commit sinful acts and thus create a troublesome situation. This is such an interesting purport. A devotee sometimes accepts a sinful person as disciple, and to counteract the sinful reactions he accepts from the disciple, he has to see a bad. I'm saving that. That's just too interesting. I'm sure this is referring to a guru, though that's not, not on the level of, like Srila Prabhupada and my Gurudev and things like that. But still, it's just... Okay. Okay, text 16. Idang aha hari prito Gajendram kuru sattama Shrinvatang sarvabhutanam sarvabhutamayo vibhuhu. O best of the Kuru dynasty, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supersoul of everyone, being thus pleased, addressed Gajendra in the presence of everyone there. He spoke the following blessings. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam uvacha. Oh wow. Ye mam tvam chasaraschedam girikandarakananam vetrakichakavenunam kolmani surapadapan shringani mani dishnani brahmano me shivasya cha kshirodam me priyam dhama shvetadvipam cha bhaswaram Shrivatsam kostubam malam gadam komodakim mama sudarshanam panchajanyam suparnam patageshwaram shesham chamatkalam shukshmam shriyang devim marashayam brahmanam naradam rishim Bhavam prahritameva cha Matsya kurma varahadyar avatarai kritani me karmanyanta karmanyananta punyani suryam somam hutashanam pranavam satyamavyaktam o vipran dharmamavyayam dakshayanir dharma patni somakashyapayorapi Gangam Saraswatim Nandang Kalinding Stavaranam Dhruvang Brahmarishin Sapta Punya Shlokangscha Manavan Utaya Pararatrante Prayata Susamahita Smaranti Mamarupani Muchante Teng Haso Kilat. And I think we end here, don't we? Oh no, we read it up to 26. Never mind. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, freed from all sinful reactions are those who rise from bed at the end of night, early in the morning, and fully concentrate their minds with great attention upon my form, your form, this lake, this mountain, the caves, the gardens, the cane plants, the bamboo plants, the celestial trees, the residential quarters of me, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, the 3 peaks of Trikuta mountain made of gold, silver, and iron, my very pleasing abode, the ocean of milk, the white island Svetadip, which is always brilliant with spiritual rays, my mark of Shivatsa, the Kostuba gem, my Vaijayanti garlands, my club, Komodaki, my Sudarshan disc, and Panchajanya conch shell, my bearer Garuda, the king of the birds, my bed, Sheshanag, my expansion of the energy of the goddess of fortune, Lord Brahma, Narad Muni, Lord Shiva, Prahlad, my wings like Matsya, Kurma, and Varaha, my unlimited, all auspicious activities which yield piety to he who hears them, the sun, the moon, fire, the mantra Omkar, the absolute truth, the total material energy, the cows and Brahmans, devotional service, the wives of Soma and Kashyapa, who are all daughters of King Daksha, the river Ganges, Saraswati, Nanda, and Yamuna, Kalindi, the elephant Airavat, Dhruv Maharaj, the 7 rishis, and the pious human beings. So freed from all sinful reactions are those who rise from the bed at the end of night, early in the morning, and fully concentrate their minds on all these things, the Lord's form and everything else here. Okay. Ye mamstuvantanenanga pratibudya nishataye tesham pranataye chaham tadhami vipulam gatim. My dear devotee, unto those who rise from bed at the end of night and offer me the prayers offered by you, I give an eternal residence in the spiritual world at the end of their lives. Shri Shuka Uvacha Ittadishya Hrishikesha Pradhamaya Jalajottamam Harshayan Vibhutanikam Aruroha Kagadhipam. Shri Shukadev Goswami continued, after giving this instruction, the Lord, who is known as Hrishikesh, what's this word? Bugled? Oh, bugled. He bugled with his Panchajanya conch way, pleasing all the demigods headed by Lord Brahma. Then he mounted the back of his carrier, Garuda. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 4th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled Gajendra Returns to the Spiritual World. Alright, so it's 8:21. That gives us some time to sing. Oops. Actually, and while this is opening up, let's see what's on Pure Bhakti. If there's a little short thing we can read about Jayadev Goswami. What is it? I'd like an article about the story of whatever. Anyhow, I'm just gonna, before we sing this song, I'm just gonna read a part of this, not the whole thing. I'm gonna read. Srila Jayadev Goswami, an intimate associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and author of the famous book Gita Govinda. We are enthusiastic to share with you a few of Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj's ever-fresh glorifications of this great Gaudiya saint. Sri Jayadev Goswami was a very high class of Mahabhagavat, and he wrote a book called Gita Govinda, The Glories of Govinda. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu saw this book, he made a copy and instructed his followers to also obtain one. At that time, there was no press. The books were reproduced by hand, so Mahaprabhu ordered his followers to write it down and then preach. In Jagannath Puri, all the Vaishnavas and associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wrote down that book and made a necklace for themselves of the beautiful songs therein. The first song in this book is Shita Kamala. The words in the song are very near and dear to Krishna, so much so that when Krishna as Jagannath Dev heard it, he became attracted. A Devadasi was singing in the forest at night, and, hearing this sweet kirtan, Jagannath Dev opened his door. It may seem that he is a statue of wood, but he is not. He left the temple and began to run very quickly through the forest toward that singing, and the many thorny bushes in that forest scratched his body and tore his clothing. Before he reached that Devadasi, he stopped her kirtan, but had already become maddened. Jagannath somehow returned to his temple and closed the door. In the morning, when the pujari came for Mangalarti, he found Jagannath covered with scratches and his cloth torn. The pujari called the main priest and the king, who both became very anxious, wondering who could have done this. They wanted to arrest the culprit, but of course, Jagannath himself was the culprit. Why did Jagannath run away? Running after a lady? It was because of his intense attraction for that song. Jagannath Dev appeared to the king in a dream and explained that he had heard his maidservant singing from a very far. He heard that maidservant singing from very far away and was so attracted that he had to run to her. He told the king that it was the bushes and thorns of the forest that had scratched his body. After this incident, it was mandated as a precaution that this song be sung only in the presence of Jagannath Dev. Everyone was ordered to be very careful not to sing this song in a distant place. Once at night, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was going to Chatak Parvat, a mountainous land located in Jagannath Puri on the coast of the Indian Ocean, not a mountainous, a hilly land, a lady was sweetly singing Shita Kamala in a very beautiful tune. Mahaprabhu could not restrain himself. He was oblivious to who was singing and began to run in the direction from which the song was coming. His servant Govinda knew that this song was coming from a lady, a very young lady. He chased after Mahaprabhu, calling, "Don't go! Don't go! Otherwise you will give up your life for having embraced a lady." He is running after Mahaprabhu, but he could not run like Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is running very swiftly. Then he loudly shouted, "Oh Prabhu, what are you doing? This song is coming from a very beautiful young lady. Don't go and embrace her." Hearing this, Mahaprabhu became alert and came to his external senses. He then said, "Oh Govinda, if you had not stopped me and I had touched that lady, I would have jumped into the ocean and given up my life." This song is so full of ras. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. That's a good place to stop. So that's how special this song is. And my Gurudev's given, I don't know, I think on purebhakti.com itself, he's given me like 6 different explanations, 5 or 6 explanations, different explanations on the meanings of each of the words from this song. I once compiled them all together. One second. There it is. Jaya Jaya Deva Hare, Jaya Jaya Deva Hare, Jaya Jaya Deva Hare, Jaya Jaya Deva Hare, Shita Kamala Kucha Mandala Drita Kundala Kalita Lalita Vanamala Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Dinamani Mandala Mandana Bhavakandana He Muni Jana Manasahangsa Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Kaliya Vishadhara Ganjana Jana Ranjana He Yadukula Nalina Dinesha Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Madhumura Naraka Vinashana Garudasana He Surakola Keli Nidana Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Amala Kamala Dala Lochana Bhava Mocha Tribhuvana Bhavana Nidhana Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Janakasuta Krita Bhushana Jita Dushana Samara Shamita Dashakanta Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Abhinava Jaladara Sundara Drita Mandara Shri Mukha Chandra Chakora Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Tava Charane Pranatavayam Iti Bhavaya Guru Kushalang Pranateshu Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Shri Jaya Deva Keridang Guru Te Mudang Mangala Mujvala Gitam Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Jaya Jaya Deva Hare Jaya Jagannatha Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol. जय श्री श्री गुरु गौरंग गंधार्बिक गिरिधारी श्री श्री राधा विनोद बिहारी जू की जय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मरण मोहन जू की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टतर शतश्मार शिल भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोसाई महाराज शिल गुरुदेव की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टतर शतश्मार शिल भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टतर शतश्मार शिल भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज शिल प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टतर शतश्मार शिल भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोसाई महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु विष्णुपाद अष्टतर शतश्मार शिल भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोसाई प्रभुपाद की जय। नितिल विष्णु महाभागवत शिल गोक्षरस बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नितिल विष्णु शिल सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नितिल विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम शिल रघुनाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपनो गौरिया गुरु वार्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भद्रदास रघुनाथ शार गोसाई प्रभु की जय। स्वरूप दामोदर राय रमनदारी श्री गौर पाशाह वृंद की जय। नामचय श्री हरिदास गौर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सार्व अविश्य प्रदाति गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंद श्याम कुंद की जय। श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाय की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्री जयदेव गोस्वामी की जय। तदीय शुभ तिरुभाव तिथि की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्रीनिताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि वो। वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रियाय केशवाश्च कृष्ण भक्ति प्रद देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः। वंचा कल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमः। Dandavad pranams, everybody. Haribo. Oh, Rup Manjari sent another photo. Let's see what it is. 1 second. Oops, what am I doing? Jai Ho, Jai Jagannath. Oh, that's a cool photo. Look, there's Gajendra. Odia art is so awesome. I really love Odia style art. Alright, see you all tomorrow. Hari Bo. Hari Bo, Jashji. Dandavad pranams Mataji, Manjari Didi, everybody else. Prajumna Prabhu Mantar Murti Mataji.